Hey, good morning to all the mighty G's out there. We start this one off with the crew freshly in Olivine City, and there's a few parallels between this group and the last. On the exterior, Olivine hasn't changed much from being a compact city surrounded by the sea. Although, as I always say, I am a land critter. Heights and boats just aren't ideal for me, so I would make a terrible member of the Rising Bolt Tacklers. It seems like every time a group arrives in Olivine, it's for something very important. Satoshi and his friends arrived over 20 years ago our time looking for a gym battle. Now Liko and co do the same, looking for an Entei. So Liko promptly picks up on the brave Olivine having the same name, of course, as the city, and that's like one of two puzzle pieces that they put together all episode. Murdoch decides to stay on board, which I thought was disappointing, like, aw, why are they deliberately leaving out my chef? You know, chefs and Jeffs gotta stick together. Although he ends up not just having screen time, but a hard time with the Tatsugiri. The writers find lots of ways to set the tone here, some subtle and some more overt, like featuring a bunch of Johto Pokemon. Ludlow also shows the group around and really takes us down memory lane. It's actually a bit of a bummer to see his fond early life memories reduced to parking lots. As someone who moved 3,000 miles from home, every time I go back it feels like things keep changing, and it's usually just more Amazon stores. So when Ludlow sounds disappointed by all the reconstruction, I feel it. There's more subtle ways they connect us to the region too, like letting our crew sip on some MooMoo Milk. A bro like me though would enjoy it straight from the udder. After lacking on luck, the group decides to chill by the waters, which is of course a place Ludlow's shown to have a connection to. It is high time we got an episode devoted to him getting to bond with our main cast outside of spouting wisdom quips. They continue making Entei inquiries, but their next target has something else on the brain, something that seems urgent. Flory tails after Wooper, and the blood-curdling screams a sign that things are about to pick up. Turns out the commotion's coming from the TV, and there's something playing that this man can't miss. At first, it read like a Johto special that the residents can recite word for word, like how a lot of millennials' brains are 30% SpongeBob quotes. The man asks Ludlow if he's a fan, but he seems hesitant to answer. Gets me wondering why Ludlow would want to keep this facet hidden, but I do have a theory. Another subtle connection to Johto is giving this man a slight Kansai accent, the real-life location in Japan that Johto is based on. So Liko questions him about this program, which prompts some immediate and intense fangirling. Warranted fangirling, though, over the superstar of this franchise, and no, I don't mean Captain Pikachu, but Jin. Quite the buff, heroic, and vivacious man with an upward-sticking mustache. The great feat of this character was a battle against a Sharpedo. Actually, several. Take a sip of MooMoo Milk every time this man says, "Versus Sharpedo!" It seems Jen became something of a one-trick Ponyta, with this Sharpedo effectively becoming his "Say the line, Bart!" This Pokemon became quintessential to the character. Whether it be action, adventure, romance, Sharpedo is there. I mean, the kiss tease being interrupted by Sharpedo was timed perfection. Honestly, this is where the episode started to pick up for me, just seeing this man's adorable enthusiasm for Sharpedo, and Ludlow by extension. Though it is interesting that the iconic pair is Ludlow and Sharpedo, when I feel like we associate him more with Quagsire. Also, typically these flashbacks are depicted by the characters themselves. So it's kind of a change of pace to have Ludlow's life narrated by this random character of the day. They also aren't using the cinematic letterboxing screen, but Ludlow's life is more of a movie than anyone else on the ship. We get to see how impactful Olivine City was in his life, and how that carried on to the name he gave his current home. I appreciate the other hint of playing the Rising Bolt Tacklers theme in the background. I mean, why use that theme for a character with no connection to the RBTs? Now that they're united under this fandom, there's a moment of reprieve by the waters. Roy starts to put some more pieces together between the parallel poses of Mighty G and the TV star. That is as far as we get though. I do love how Roy extends the screen though, like what? This old dude's eyes need checked. It's a fun little fan debate here, feels like it shows off how opinionated we viewers can get with our favorite characters. Still interesting to see how neither here nor there Ludlow is about it. Continues to get me curious why he's being so low-key. My other curiosity, the real reason Murdoch stayed behind, did get answered, and it was simply to fill up space. The lively Murdoch, who's been behind on screen time, rabble-rousing with some chaotic Pokemon on the ship, I mean, it practically writes itself. Things also start to come together as well as the Tatsugiri drift away on a raft similar to a Sharitatsu tubboat. Okay, this I would brave the sea in. Much like the Gold and Silver games, our heroes initially pass through the Royal Islands without much trouble from these natural phenomenons. Appreciate them making the series feel connected to a game it isn't, as well as the Scarlet and Violet ones. Even if it is the less favorable aspects like the Blueberry Quest Pokemon picture taking, visiting very specific locations like this does make me think we're in the same universe as Ash's. I'm sure many of us still remember their first run-in with these whirlpools, how they were flung into the sea and got their first series sighting of Lugia. Funny how Ash and his friends came across the legendary Pokemon by circumstance, while our crew was diligently searching to no avail. Also was pleasantly surprised to see Quagsire hop off the ship to follow the Tatsugiri. Gives the impression these two plots are about to intersect. Ludlow seems to sense the slight shift in Quagsire's energy from miles away, yet Sharpedo is the iconic one? I guess it's Quagsire for Ludlow, Sharpedo for Mighty G. Dot zooms in and sees the Pokemon in their not so dire predicament, although it kinda makes Murdoch seem a little incompetent to have the kids have to step in and try and clean up this mess. Although no character's presence went more wasted this episode than Kilowattrels. Maybe it's a way with the tense music to add some stakes to this Cavalier Caviar affair. I made a noise I just can't replicate when the Whooper went in to help and immediately made the situation worse. That's so me-coded. Ludlow seems to have a plan he wants to enact, but the other fan keeps obstructing him. Perhaps that's why he wants to keep things low-key. Super fans can get super obsessed with their superheroes. When you're pushing 70, maybe that's just not the intensity you want on a daily basis. I mean, we saw how long it took Liko just to acclimate to Dot, and like an actual superhero trope, Ludlow gets to conceal his secret identity. Fisher by day, fighter by night. It is a bit of a risk here though, considering there's only like 5 of them, so Ludlow's absence should easily go noticed. That is of course unless Mighty G can put on a show that the others can't look away from. All of the pieces have really come together for this. Mighty G's transformation at sea, his trademark Sharpedo, the signature pose, and even his Quagsire adding the icing to the cake. Finally seeing his hero in person sparks the fan to put the connection together too. How special for him to see Mighty G in live action. Although at this point it's no longer versus Sharpedo, but partner Sharpedo, the very good boy. I can understand the excitement and getting locked in. It's not every day you meet one of your literal heroes, which they say not to do. I mean, for me, I would pass out if I met Ichiro Oda. Although it is still odd to me that they didn't stop to think of Ludlow for a moment, even when taking this commemorative photo. Like, hey, we got these 2 old men here. Where's our third? It's just odd that suddenly all the gears stop turning, but hey. Eventually they reunite with everyone and the adorable keeps delivering. Unfortunately though, the other Volt Tacklers have no news to deliver. But it seems their new friend is actually able to point them in the right direction, so now their sights are set. Plus, towards the end, Murdoch does become plot relevant again. Seems he just didn't notice the Tatsu's absence, or he just didn't want to bring up the mishap. Still, he managed to be successful in creating quite the colorful and vibrant sushi dish from this region. It's gonna be the fuel they'll need for their upcoming match against Entei. If I had to give my thoughts on this episode, I'd say it took a long time to warm up. Our heroes go wandering around Olivine searching for clues on Entei, but are largely unsuccessful. That is about all it boils down to, but similar to last week's episode, you get a very boisterous character to liven things up. Personally, I enjoyed the eccentric shipman more than the why not guy, just from how endearing he was. How much it meant to him to finally see his hero in action. While Ludlow himself wasn't the exact focus, it was more of his persona. It still gives us great insight into his character. In a way, he could have chosen a life of fame and glamour, but instead has chosen one that's not really simpler, but allows him to live and explore life at his own pace. If we get another Ludlow focus episode anytime soon, I'd like more insight into who he is outside of these personas that make him feel a bit more cartoonish compared to the rest of the cast. But for this episode, I give it a very high C.